119 years. That is how long Rolls-Royce has been building cars with internal combustion engines. 119 years of V8s and V12s and straight sixes and superchargers. 119 years of that sound. That deep, authoritative, unmistakable Rolls-Royce engine note that told the world something significant was approaching. And then Rolls-Royce made a decision that nobody saw coming. They stopped, they looked at 119 years of heritage and said, it ends here. The 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre has no engine, no cylinders, no exhaust pipes, no fuel tank. It produces zero sound at any speed, zero vibration at any speed, and it costs $420,000. Welcome back to UC Car Review. Today we are reviewing the most historically significant Rolls-Royce ever built. Not because it is the most powerful or the most luxurious, but because it marks the permanent end of something that began in 1906. The question we are answering today is the most important question in luxury automotive history right now. Did Rolls-Royce make the right decision? Does the electric Spectre actually deliver a better Rolls-Royce experience than the V12 Ghost? Let's find out together. The 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre is the most beautiful electric vehicle ever designed by any manufacturer at any price point. I want to make that statement clearly and defend it completely. Because the automotive world has struggled to make electric vehicles look emotionally compelling, and Rolls-Royce has done something here that no other brand has managed. The Spectre is a two-door fastback Grand Tourer, the first Rolls-Royce coupe since the Wraith was discontinued. The fastback roofline sweeps from the A-pillar to the rear in one dramatic, uninterrupted arc, creating a silhouette that is simultaneously the most modern and the most classically elegant shape in the current Rolls-Royce lineup. There are no sharp angles. There are no aggressive aero elements demanding attention. There is only flow, a shape that looks like it was drawn by someone who had never seen a bad car design. The black aero paint on this car is one of Rolls-Royce's most complex finishes, containing black, deep blue, and silver metallic particles that create a surface that appears to have physical depth. In direct light, it is brilliant and complex. In shadow, it absorbs light completely. At night, illuminated by street lights, it produces an effect that is genuinely difficult to look away from. The absence of a B-pillar, the vertical support between the front and rear windows, creates an uninterrupted glass greenhouse that runs the full length of the car. When both coach doors are open, the entire side of the car is open. No obstruction, no column, just a complete opening from front to rear. This is not a styling choice. It is Rolls-Royce communicating that every detail of entering and exiting this car has been considered and perfected. There is one feature inside the 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre that stops every single person who sees it for the first time. Not the leather, not the wood, not the technology, the ceiling. Specifically, the 1,340 individual fiber optic strands hand-woven into the headliner fabric by Rolls-Royce craftspeople at their Goodwood facility, each one placed individually by hand to recreate the night sky above the owner's specified location on a specified date and time. 1,340 individual strands, each one thin enough that it is invisible until it is illuminated. Each one placed by a craftsperson who has trained for months specifically to achieve the consistent density and distribution pattern that makes the Starlight headliner look like a real sky rather than a pattern of lights. This process takes between 17 and 25 hours per car, depending on the complexity of the constellation specified. In the Spectre, Rolls-Royce introduced the shooting star function as standard, a programmed sequence where individual fiber optic strands illuminate sequentially across the headliner to simulate a shooting star crossing the sky. The timing and frequency of the shooting stars can be customized by the owner. Some owners have specific constellations recreated, the sky above the city where they were born, or the sky above the location where they met their spouse. I lay in the rear seat of the Spectre with the cabin in complete darkness and watched the headliner for 3 minutes. A shooting star crossed at the 90-second mark. I have reviewed cars for 11 years. That was the first time I have ever felt something close to wonder inside an automobile. The rear seat of the 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre is the reason this car exists. Not the electric powertrain, not the performance numbers, not the exterior design. The rear seat, and specifically the experience of being transported in it, is the product that Rolls-Royce has been perfecting for 119 years. And in the Spectre, they have produced the finest version of that product in their history. The Spectre's rear cabin benefits directly from its electric powertrain in a way that most people have not considered. Without a transmission tunnel running through the floor, because there is no transmission, the rear floor is completely flat. Flat floor means maximum footwell space. Maximum footwell space means the rear seat passenger can extend their legs further than in any previous Rolls-Royce. The recline angle of the rear seat is steeper than the Ghost. The headroom, despite the fastback roofline, is sufficient for a 6-foot adult to sit without touching the Starlight headliner above. The individual rear picnic tables, folding panels that extend from the rear of each front seatback, create personal workspaces for rear passengers. The rear entertainment screens are built into the backs of the front headrests. The bespoke audio system fills the rear cabin independently from the front. Rear passengers can listen to different content at a different volume without affecting the driver's experience. The lambswool floor mats, 1.4 inches thick in the Spectre, slightly deeper than the Ghost, are the most tactile surface in the car. Removing your shoes in the rear of the Spectre is not optional. It is instinctive. Your feet find the lambswool and your entire body relaxes simultaneously. That is not a feature. That is engineering directed at human well-being. The 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre produces a cabin noise level at 75 miles per hour of 34 decibels. I need to give you a reference point for that number. A recording studio, designed specifically for the capture of sound, so quiet it would otherwise be masked by ambient noise, operates at approximately 30 decibels. The Spectre's interior at highway speed is 4 decibels louder than a professional recording studio. You are traveling at 75 miles per hour in a vehicle that is quieter than most people's bedrooms at midnight. Achieving this required acoustic engineering that goes significantly beyond what any previous Rolls-Royce or any other production vehicle has accomplished. The Spectre's body structure uses 85 kilograms of sound insulation material, more than double the Ghost. Every body panel joint is sealed with acoustic foam before the exterior panels are fitted. The glass in every window is acoustic laminated, thicker, and heavier than standard automotive glass, with a sound-dampening interlayer that reduces transmitted noise. But the most significant acoustic advantage of the Spectre over every previous Rolls-Royce is the electric powertrain itself. The V12 engine in the Ghost, for all its refinement, produces vibration. That vibration travels through the engine mounts, through the chassis, into the body structure, and ultimately into the cabin. Rolls-Royce's engineers have spent decades minimizing this transmission. In the Spectre, there is no vibration to minimize. The electric motors produce no combustion pulses, no reciprocating mass, no firing intervals. The silence is not engineered. It is inherent. The electric powertrain in the 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre was not adapted from a partner manufacturer's platform. It was designed from the ground up by Rolls-Royce engineers specifically for this vehicle, and every decision made in its development reflects the specific priorities of Rolls-Royce ownership rather than the priorities of any other electric vehicle program. The system uses 2 electric motors, one at the front axle and one at the rear, producing a combined output of 577 horsepower and 664 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure is available from 0 RPM, instantly, completely, without any buildup or delay. The result is a 0 to 60 time of 4.4 seconds, in a vehicle weighing 66 pounds. The acceleration feels completely different from any combustion engine. It is not a surge, not a thrust, but a smooth, silent, continuous increase in velocity that feels more like the world shrinking around you than the car moving through it. The 102 kilowatt-hour battery pack is positioned under the floor of the entire vehicle, not in a central tunnel, but spread across the full floor area. This positioning lowers the center of gravity by 30% compared to a Ghost, improving handling dynamics significantly. It also completely eliminates the transmission tunnel, creating the flat floor rear cabin that benefits rear passengers so dramatically. The Spectre accepts up to 195 kilowatts of DC fast charging, adding approximately 100 miles of range in 20 minutes at a compatible charger. A full charge from 10% to 100% takes 34 minutes. For level 2 home charging, a full overnight charge takes 10 hours. Rolls-Royce expects the majority of Spectre owners to charge exclusively at home, and for the ownership profile of a Spectre customer, that assumption is entirely reasonable. 320 miles. That is the EPA estimated range of the 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre on a full charge. And I conducted the most relevant real-world range test I could design for the actual ownership profile of a Rolls-Royce customer, which looks very different from a typical EV range test. I drove the Spectre 280 miles across a combination of Los Angeles surface streets, Pacific Coast Highway, and California Interstate. With the climate control maintaining 72 degrees, the rear seat entertainment system active, the bespoke audio system at moderate volume, and ambient lighting on throughout. My real-world range result was 291 miles. Not 320, but 291 miles from a single charge in real-world conditions with all comfort systems active. For a Rolls-Royce customer, 291 miles per charge is not a limitation. The majority of Rolls-Royce owners drive fewer than 50 miles per day. They have home charging installed before their car arrives. Rolls-Royce's delivery process includes a home charging assessment and installation as part of the purchase experience. For these customers, range anxiety is not a concept that applies to their Spectre ownership. They wake up every morning to a full charge, drive whatever distance their day requires, and plug in when they return home. The only scenario where the Spectre's range requires planning is a long-distance interstate journey. And for that scenario, Rolls-Royce provides their concierge charging service, which pre-plans charging stops at premium locations along any specified route and arranges for the charger to be available and operational before the car arrives. This is not charging. This is a charging experience designed for people who have never waited for anything in their lives. $420,000. Let me give you the complete, honest assessment, the price breakdown, the ghost comparison, and the final verdict on whether Rolls-Royce made the right decision. The 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre starts at $420,000 in the United States. The Bespoke program, and every Spectre buyer uses the Bespoke program, takes individual cars to between $450,000 and $600,000. The car in this review, with the bespoke interior, the bespoke exterior paint process, and the illuminated fascia, sits at $487,000. Against the Ghost. The Ghost V12 starts at $398,500. It produces a sound the Spectre cannot replicate. It has a range that requires no planning. It has a heritage that 119 years of combustion engineering built. For a customer who values those specific things, the Ghost remains the correct Rolls-Royce. But the Spectre does something the Ghost cannot. It delivers the silence that Rolls-Royce has been engineering toward for 119 years. Every acoustic innovation, every insulation technology, every vibration damping system that Rolls-Royce's engineers have developed across more than a century was always moving toward one goal: the complete elimination of mechanical intrusion from the passenger experience. The Spectre is the first Rolls-Royce where that goal has been completely achieved. Not approached, achieved. Does the electric Spectre beat the Ghost? On silence, completely. On rear seat experience, by a small margin. On range and charging convenience, Ghost wins for long distance. On sound and theater, Ghost wins entirely. On historic significance, Spectre wins forever. My final verdict: the 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre is not the best Rolls-Royce for every customer. But it is the most important Rolls-Royce ever built, because it proves that the transition to electric does not require any compromise in the luxury experience that Rolls-Royce has defined for 119 years. The future of Rolls-Royce is electric, and the future is extraordinary. UC Car Review 2026 Rolls-Royce Spectre, 9.7 out of 10. The most historically significant luxury car of our generation. Subscribe, because next week we find out if any other brand can match what Rolls-Royce achieved here.